Cool.
Hey everybody, welcome to Rising Nomad. And today we have Shaun.
Hello.
Shaun is an anthropologist from Australia who contacted me and wanted to ask me some questions. So I want to ask him some questions as well and sort of, trade some information about the digital nomad movement. And so why don't you start by telling us about the interest and how you became interested in this stuff?
Yeah, so I've been a nomad myself for about 10 years as a travel writer, travel journalist. When COVID happened, all my work stopped. So I kind of had this idea about writing this book about the deeper reasons why people travel, because I was living in Budapest at the time and I went back to Australia at the start of COVID, and I kind of felt this sense of attachment to Budapest. And I thought, okay, isn't it interesting that I have this attachment to a place that I have no historical roots to? And I came across this concept of place attachment. So it's basically attachment theory that we can have, that's in place with, in between people, but it can also be, we can also be attached to places. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I wanted to, write a book about, the philosophy of travel, and I wanted to take, academic concepts and kind of explain them in everyday language so everyone can kind of understand. But in order to do that, I first had to understand the concepts myself. So I was reading a lot of academic literature, and I kind of got inspired to kind of get back into the academic world. And at the time, I thought it would be good to research digital nomads, because I could see that this was going to be a bigger thing moving forward because of remote work, and now people can work from anywhere, and why wouldn't they experiment with different modes of life? So anyway, I kind of, sent a proposal off to the University of Melbourne about the dark sides of digital nomadism. So it's presented as this kind of, it's romanticized as this, amazing lifestyle, and it can be, but it also has its challenges and its costs. And my interest was kind of looking at how nomads kind of balance these competing needs and how they manage the dark sides in the lifestyle. So for example, nomads really value freedom, and they pursue freedom in terms of geographic freedom, but that freedom comes at the cost of social connection. So you're always kind of moving out of places where you know people and starting again, and that's a price that nomads are willing to pay. And I'm interested in the strategies that nomads use to kind of get their social needs met whilst always being on the move. So that's basically my interest. So looking at the tensions, the paradoxes, the contradictions, the dichotomies, and how nomads resolve them through various practices.
Yeah, there is a very interesting dark side to this lifestyle, I gotta say. But when you look at it, it's like there's also a dark side to pretty much any lifestyle, any culture, and any sort of way of being. And what I think a lot of us are on is a constant journey to tweak and find new ways to explore ourselves and surroundings and tweak our lifestyle. So it tends to just, get better with time. So what did you want to know about me and my journey?
Yeah, so basically, first of all, I guess, how long have you been nomadic for? What you do for work, and how did you get into this lifestyle?
So it was actually through music, and I was a IT tech in Toronto, Canada, since I was 16, and by the time I was 25, the freedom that gave me, being freelance, had led me to travel Europe so many times, and led me to want to start doing music in Europe, led me to fall in love, like you mentioned, be attached to a city called Belgrade, Serbia. And when I went home, life was just not the same. I needed to live there. I was growing as a human being more when I was outside of my home city of Toronto. So there was a compulsive urge to get over there. And I had previously, in my previous trips, been making experiments since about 2007, the year before, where I was fixing computers remotely. I saw that the technology for voice over IP calling and remote screen sharing and remote computer control was getting really good, and that it would be very soon that I could do my job entirely remotely. Getting my clients to accept that was another sort of thing. But and so over about 3 years, I sort of transitioned from 2008 to 2011. And I was living in Belgrade about half the time and Toronto about half the time. Okay. And, it was a lot of going back to Toronto and seeing my clients in person and then going and spending my money in Europe, but I would keep in touch with them while I was there. I would and do the remote thing as much as possible, send out another guy and manage that remotely and all that sort of stuff. And it seemed like something that an idea that had legs, but it wasn't ready yet. And I had started my musical project, Worldly Savages, at that time, and started touring with that. And then I moved to London for 1 year, where it was the only time when I had a real office job, and I hated that so much.
Yeah.
Wrote some songs like "Soon I Will Break Free," "I Will Find My Destiny," "I Will Leave the City and Follow My Dreams," in 8.5 months. And basically, after that, it was just, I knew what I needed to do. So I went to Belgrade, rented an apartment, and my job was to find a job that I could work online. And that worked out. Within a couple months, I started working for an IT support company in London, and 15 hours a week, 800 euros a month, just helped me scrape by.
Yeah.
And I got it going and settled in.
And how many years ago was that?
That was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, so I started experimenting with the lifestyle 15 years ago,
yeah,
and went full-time 10
Nice.
years ago. And now today I run a business called Support Adventure, which has 180 IT technicians working on the same model that I started with 10 years ago, remote-only IT support.
Right.
So.
Cool. And now is Belgrade your primary base, and you kind of use that as your...
No, it's shifted to here over the last year and a half. As Thailand opened up after COVID, I was here for the initial lockdowns, and then I went back to Belgrade. Belgrade is now, I guess, my secondary base. It was the primary, now it's the secondary. I just hate winter. It's a place I want to be from April till October, and I want to be here the rest of the time because this has been the other base. I've also spent time in Mexico, Colombia, South Africa, and a few other countries in Asia. So,
do you consider yourself a digital nomad?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
It means just having this lifestyle. I'm not going to show up anywhere but online. I can turn on my camera, I can talk to you, we can meet each other, maybe I can fly to your office in California, but I'm not going to show up to the office, and I'm going to constantly tweak my lifestyle so that travel is a part of what I'm doing, and living in places that inspire me is a priority. I've sort of settled into what I call a slow mad lifestyle now, because when I was building my business, going around to all these places like Colombia, Panama, South Africa, Thailand, and meeting clients in the various locations like the States and the UK, it was exhausting. And COVID really forced me to slow down. That, and I found a liking to the slow mad lifestyle. So
totally. You mentioned before that you felt like you grew more when you were overseas. What do you think what is the link between growth and travel, and why do people feel like they grow more outside of their home than inside their home? Do you have any theories on why that is?
Yeah, of course. It's because the assumptions that you're raised with, the plan for how you are going to be a human being in society is disrupted. And you get shown the alternatives of like what other people in the world are doing. You get to reinvent yourself, be who you want, and have experiences that change you forever. And I would never change this. Like people thought I was crazy. What, you're moving to Serbia? What are you going to do there? Like sort of thing. Are you going to teach English or something? It's like, no, I'm working on something else. I'm working on music, and I'm going to do my tech job. Everyone thought it was crazy, but I was 25, and I didn't feel that I could continue to grow as a human being in Canada, because I had already broken free from that narrative when I was 16. I started my own IT business, dropped out of university at 20, and sort of like just decided to be a freelancer. And it's just like breaking free. Travel helps us do that.
What I find interesting is that I think like human beings, we love to kind of experience new things. Like we love novelty. And we also crave kind of like stability as well. Like we want a certain amount of novelty in our lives, and then we want a certain amount of consistency, stability. And what I find interesting is that obviously you can get novelty also by staying at home, by maybe going to new restaurants or going to new cafes or reading new books. There's a way for human beings to kind of scratch that itch towards, new things. But what I find interesting is, why do nomads seek the novel outside their home? Like there's something else. It's like what is it about nomads that makes them leave? And one of my theories, or I've experienced this myself, is that I feel like a lot of nomads never really felt a sense of belonging back home.
Well, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I felt like an outsider for sure.
Yeah.
And
so that resonates with you as well? Like
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It is what it is. I mean, like, yeah. I never felt like I could do the thing like most people are doing it over there. Like, go to school, get a job, you know, build a life. Like that. I always had to do things my own way, and the system frustrated me. The culture frustrated me. I was so focused on this capitalist security, and I, you know, when you find out there's other stuff out there, that, you know, there's more cultural richness than this, you know, sort of like developed first world, former British colony stuff. Like, it's you owe it to yourself to explore that. Yeah, maybe you go back a few years. I don't think I'm ever going back, but you know. At least you got out there. And maybe I felt like an outsider from birth, and I'm grateful for that because there's so much possibility.
Definitely. So you're from Canada. Where's your ancestry from? Do you know?
Yeah, Central Europe.
Okay.
Former Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Okay. All right. Do you reckon that also
and Ukraine?
Okay. Do you think that also maybe played a part in this sense of not feeling like you belonged in Canada?
Definitely. My grandparents left their home city of Bratislava, Slovakia, as ethnic Germans in 1945 when the Soviets came and started instituting the communist revolution. And basically it's they were growing up in a city where they spoke 3 languages: Hungarian, Slovak, and German, and they liked their, you know, they didn't really integrate into Canadian society like a lot of immigrants do. I guess because they went with the considerable savings and didn't have to like climb the social ladder. And my dad was similar to me, hitchhiked all around Europe in the 70s, and, you know, raised me with a worldview, let's say, and made sure that I got to travel as a child. And so, you know, he supports me completely on the path, and my upbringing played a huge role in me being on this path.
Do you feel like a lot of nomads could resonate with this sense of belonging, not really feeling it at home and maybe trying to seek it? Is that what ultimately nomads are trying to do? Find somewhere around the world and find a community where they feel like they actually belong? And usually that's with other nomads.
I've got a song called Lost and Confused with my band Erik and the Worldly Savages, and the lyric is, I traveled all around Europe and I found myself a home, but still this confusion doesn't go. Because if you're something missing, you'll be missing everywhere. You can go as far as you dare. So the thing is to find home within. And you can go, and you're by becoming a nomad and landing in a foreign place, you're kind of like confirming your outsider feelings. You're making it really permanent, and and that's true. I like it. I like being a gringo. I love the word gringo. I don't know.
What's the advantage of being the outsider in a host society?
You get to be who you want. You're always going to be strange. Like if you always in your life felt strange, well, now you're always strange, and you can kind of like detach from the expectations that other people have, especially if you come to Asia, you know? Like, and especially if you don't speak the language. And, you know, when I learned Serbian to a reasonable degree of fluency, it became less fun to be in Serbia because you can understand what the people are saying and like the sarcastic comments and the closed-mindedness and stuff like that. Like, but if you don't understand what's going on in the culture around you to a linguistic degree, it's very freeing. Like
I lived in Budapest for a year and a half, and I love living there. And you know, I think the people are actually quite, you know, they're quite sweet people underneath. They're just a bit more reserved than, for example, like other nationalities like Australians. But then Hungarians would tell me, but you can't understand what Hungarians are saying. Like when you're on the tram, whatever, going down, you know, the Kurut. If you could hear what they're saying, you would realize that they're just complaining all the time and very, very negative. So it's kind of like being an outsider, you're shielded from that negativity that's in the language. So sometimes it's kind of good not to be able to understand what's being said. So in terms of challenges in the lifestyle, so what do you find challenging about being nomadic?
Stability. Yeah, it's basically just the feeling of groundedness and stability. And time zones also. Not much else. I've been doing it for so long, but it's just the feeling of stability and the social thing.
Yeah. The stability thing, it's interesting because like that's just a byproduct of moving around, and ultimately we're in control of moving around. So are you willing to kind of sacrifice mobility for that security, or how do you get that?
Slow mad, yeah.
Yeah, slow mad. Okay, yeah.
You know, if you got a bunch of places around the world where you go and you have experience there, and you want to spend like 2 months in Mexico, you want to spend 2 months in Thailand, and you know, you might even have some key items there, like a yoga mat, like a bicycle, and a place where you stay, and it's just plug and play when you go. When I got back here in October, I was staying in the same apartment that I was staying in when I left in April, and it was just like my whole routine just chung 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 chung. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm good.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I had that in Chiang Mai as well. I was in Chiang Mai last year, and then I came back and stayed in the same apartment. And it's that sense of familiarity that also I think can help a place feel like home. Like when you know the place, when you know how to get around, that comfort and that ease makes a place feel like home. I want to ask you as well, like, what does home mean? Like when you try to define what a home is, you said that home was inside. Is it also the people in the place as well that you know and that know you?
It's the vibe of the place. It's the types of people that come there. It's the specific people that you know. It's the way that you jive with aspects of the culture, like food and you know, music and you know, design and yeah, that's home. That's like, if you can find a place that you feel an affinity for, then that's home. Certainly.
And how did Belgrade feel like a place for you as soon as you got there? And what was it about the city or the culture or the people that made you feel like, oh, you know what, I could stay here for a while?
It was like the friendliness of the people, their ability to speak English but offer their own culture in a really, really interesting perspective. And it was the warmth and hospitality of people, the fact that there weren't that many foreigners there. You know, because it was just like 6 or 7 years after the whole like 90s war stuff was happening, and they were really hospitable, and they wanted to make me a part of their culture. Yeah. And I ultimately became a part of their culture. Yeah.
But like Canadians are also quite, are they warm and friendly as well?
I would say it depends.
Yeah.
It depends. I would say we're probably more reserved than Australians, and slightly less reserved than British people.
Yeah, okay.
And way more reserved than Americans.
Yeah. It's funny because you're just like opposite the border.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto, where I'm from, it's a business city. It's like probably the most puritanical of the former British colonies in terms of the way the society evolved over the colonial time. Yeah. You know, when the American Revolution happened, all the most conservative people left America and went to Canada. Yeah. So.
Oh, really?
Stuff like until the 70s, if you wanted to have a drink at a bar and move to another table, you had to get the waitress to move that. Separate entrances for men and women, stuff like that. Like a card that when you buy liquor, they write it, and you need a permit for it, and they say, what happened to that bottle of whiskey you bought yesterday? And it's
that's
Canada. It was a limited runway for me to become the man I wanted to be.
Yeah. I want to talk about community now.
Yeah.
So nomads are often trying to find community. A lot of places now, like co-working spaces and co-living spaces, will advertise community as almost one of the benefits you get by joining. Is it possible to have a community full of transient people?
Yes.
Like, because normally we think of community, you can go past.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Community, we think of...
Sorry.
Yes, it is. It is possible, and I've been on couchsurfing for many, many years. And the ethos of the site, well, many say it's become diluted or corrupted, still remains very dear to me and important. And yeah, it is a sense of community, and you find different people seeking different stuff. There's different types of nomads, and you just have to find the people who are into what you're into. Having conversations like this is something I'm into, so I'm glad that you reached out to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's possible. Co-working spaces are not my favorite because I find it kind of weird, the I'm here to work vibe with I'm here to socialize vibe. I'd prefer to just have like either it's a meetup or it's a place I'm going to work.
It's quite ambiguous, isn't it? Like that space, and that's why I think people are hesitant. So if you walk into a co-working space and you sit down, you don't know if the person sitting in front of you is there just to work or if they're open to meeting people. So it's very ambiguous, and oftentimes that ambiguity will stop you from actually reaching out because like I don't want to disrupt them. I guess with community as well. Did you have a community here that you kind of cultivated before you left, and that's here when you get back, or those people? Have they moved out as well? Is it this constant?
Everyone's always leaving. That's one of the sad parts of being in a place like this.
Transient place,
Yeah, everyone's always leaving, but lots of people are coming back too. And it's like whatever, whoever's here, when they're here, you hang out with people. It's also healthy to have a constant refresh of energy in people.
I think so. One nomad described the whole process of meeting and saying goodbye is a series of mini heartbreaks.
If that's
you know what I mean. It's like it's hard sometimes to kind of connect with people, but this is kind of like an occupational hazard in a way. It's like it comes with the territory, and if you're not willing to take that on, then this lifestyle may not be for you. What do you think? I guess, what do you think is the hardest part about the whole social side of digital nomadism? And also, like, how do you feel like, it's a different question, I guess, but how do you think that the landscape's going to change since COVID? Because now, my thinking is before COVID, there were two main groups of people that came into this space. There were people that loved traveling and they wanted to find out a way to kind of continue traveling, and so they turned to remote work. And I think other people they have a business idea and they want to go somewhere cheap to kind of get the idea off the ground to see if it works, and they have no real interest in traveling per se. It's just the fact that it's cheap. Now with COVID, you have a lot more kinds of people coming into the space that may be experimenting with workations and everything. And I've noticed myself, maybe you've noticed this as well, but co-working spaces and cafes where people are working have become a lot louder, because now I feel like before there were more people doing kind of like introverted kind of work, or work that just involved them in the computers. Now I'm finding a lot of people doing a lot of business calls, sales calls.
Sitting doing interviews in a cafe.
Well, this is for research. But you know what I mean? Like it feels like the whole space has become louder.
And it's like we become a very visible sort of minority, which can be like a dominant minority economically in places as well. And it's I embrace it. I mean, like whatever. I mean, if you want to open up a cafe and have a big sign that says no Wi-Fi, no laptops, do that. Like if that's your thing. If you want to find a nice place to work, do it. If you know, like if like just whatever. It's what can you do? People are going to find space, and they're going to go where they feel treated best and most welcome.
Do you feel like sometimes that us digital nomads, remote workers, are kind of colonizing spaces?
Yes.
Colonizing cafes, even colonizing countries and stuff. And what do you feel about that?
What do I feel about that? It's a tricky issue. It's one like the economic part of it is a double-edged sword. The social part of it could function a lot better. The interaction between locals
Yeah.
and international people.
Yeah.
It depends on the host country and what they're offering and how that goes down. For example, I don't feel like there's a chance that Serbia could be changed in the way places like this island could be changed, because it's got so much of its own identity that's in your face.
Yeah.
Whereas like here, it's very easy to let Thai culture sort of fade into the background and just live your gringo life.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. It's we're gonna see. I'm hoping that it brings a very interesting and new mix of cultures that will provide more opportunities and level the cultures, so that you already see if people like work in a cafe like this, their English is improving rapidly and they're becoming more westernized. Is that a good thing? I would argue that it is. That people have access to that global English-speaking culture and they feel a part of it, and that if we, as curious ambassadors of that culture, come and live in their country, but like a place like this is really good because people come mostly for long. You have to know about this place. People come for longer. In Tulum, Mexico, for example, it's like you can get on a plane for 2 hours from Miami and be on the beach within a few hours for a couple of days and do like a cocaine bender. That's not what we want. That's not like that's. So that place is pretty done, but this place still has a sort of like authenticity, but the crowd is changing and the impact of stuff is changing. And we just have to make sure that there continue to be people who are engaging on a community level with the right values and creating spaces and initiatives and events that give back to where we are.
Do you feel like nomads have like an obligation in some way to kind of help the local communities that they're living in?
I'm not going to moralize it like that. I don't think there's a should here. There's it's like anywhere in history where people go and they settle down, they bring their culture, it makes an impact, and some things are really beautiful as a result of that. Like, for example, the influence of European culture in North America from the post-war immigration of Italians, Jewish and Germans, and everybody like sort of like really added a lot of flavor to North American culture.
Definitely.
And I'm used to people coming to my country and bringing their stuff and influencing my culture, because my grandparents were people who did that. And it's not, the difference is now we're coming with no real need to integrate. We're coming with no real I said my grandparents were kind of like that when they went to Canada, but still they did have to. You can live in your own bubble more with this digital nomad thing, and we got to watch it. And it's can be good, can be bad. We'll find out what it makes. It's just another mixing of cultures, and I think that's beautiful in a way.
It's interesting. What do you think about the influence that some nomads can have, or some nomad communities can have on, for example, local housing prices?
I don't know what I think about that yet. I don't really have an opinion. Yes, it's looking rough in places like this. It's
Because I guess one of the tensions that I've often thought about is, nomads are in this lifestyle ultimately to pursue a better quality of life for themselves, in whatever that means for them, but that can come at the cost of the quality of life for the locals, in terms of like literally the cost, like in terms of inflation, housing, and everything like that. And so there's this tension between, well, we have one group of people that are trying to pursue a better quality of life, but in pursuit of that better quality of life, it makes it harder for other people to attain a certain quality of life. So there's this tension between these two communities, and like, what do you do in that situation? It's very, it's hard. It's like,
well,
unanswerable almost.
Yeah. Well, we're still a very small population, and this displacement is only in a few specific places, and they still have all the other cities in their country to go.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to see. It's still very small. It's still very early days, and the big one this year is the Russians trying to escape the political atmosphere and the sanctions in their country. And if I was from Russia, I'd be doing the exact same thing. But unfortunately, it's driving up the rental prices in a lot of places.
Yeah. I guess this is the thing, like if you ever had any doubts that the world is interconnected, that we're all interdependent, like stuff like this just shows you, like, it doesn't matter where something happens, ultimately it's going to probably affect you and where you live. Like, it came down to gas prices and food and everything, accommodation. We all are living on the same planet, and we all kind of influence each other.
Yeah.
Have you ever, this is something that I've thought about often as well, like, you know, let's look at a cafe. So you go into a cafe to do some work, and let's say you're working for a Canadian company, an Australian company. So you're earning, let's say, an hourly wage for your work. So you're in this space working, maybe getting $50 an hour. And then at that cafe, there's a Thai person working also for an hour in the same space, but earning maybe $2. And there's this power differential between economic power between what you're earning in the same space for your labor and what the local person is earning for their time, for their labor.
Yeah.
And there's this sometimes an uncomfortable kind of recognition of how privileged and how much power we have.
Listen, I'm in my business. I'm on every single side of this conversation, and it's like, you know, if you post a job that pays double the local salary, you'll get, or triple the local salary, you'll get that comment. If you post, and then you'll also get comments, this is way too low, because in America back home I can get, you know, 3 times that, and what you're gonna get criticism no matter what you do. You're going to like sort of just run into people who don't like what you're doing no matter what you do. The best thing you can do is always focus on being kind to the people around you and making their lives better. So tipping should be like high on the list. If you're making a lot more than the locals, just leave a nice tip. Don't treat them like they're to serve you. Treat them as people who are they're living life just as you. And we're going to see a lot more people who don't get that, who don't respect the local culture, local people, who just want to wave their cash around but these are not new human issues. We're just exploring them in a new way through this movement. Yeah. And what do you think the future of digital nomadism is going to be in the next 5 years? Do you think it's going to become the norm? I think that you're going to see more people skipping winter, and it's going to be like almost seen like, oh, you're staying for the winter, why would you do that? In a lot of places. And that's certainly what I've transitioned to. I think you're going to see a lot more arts and culture coming out of it. Like my band Worldly Savages, I sing about it, whereas a lot of the scenes in these places are pretty infantile in terms of arts and culture. And I think there's going to be a lot more of a voice for people who want to have these discussions, and they're going to actually like philosophically empower a lot of people to go out and make the right changes in these communities vis-a-vis all the people who are newbies. And
slightly different question. How much time?
I got to wrap this up.
I guess one more question. So the great thing about digital nomadism, or geo-arbitrage, I guess more specifically, is that you're able to earn, you're able to live in a country with a lower cost of living. So let's say, for example, in my case, I was a travel writer. Travel writing doesn't pay that well. And the only reason why I was really able to sustain myself for the last 10 years as a travel writer was because I was basing myself in, you know, Budapest or Thailand. And so this lifestyle helps people pursue work that's meaningful to them, because usually in society there seems to be a correlation between how meaningful work is to you and a lack of financial reward. Usually, like sometimes you can like do what you love to do that's meaningful and get paid really well, but usually there's a trade-off. And this lifestyle enables people to pursue what's meaningful to them, and they can sustain it by moving outside their country. But I sometimes think, okay, let's say you're the kind of nomad that is happy to earn $1,000 a month because it enables you to live in Thailand and you can, you know, maybe work 5 hours a week writing articles. I think the danger is moving forward in the future. You, like, let's say when you want to retire or when you want to kind of stop working, because you haven't really saved up a lot of money, you don't have a lot of assets to your name, the places where you can retire become limited to the global south.
It's another we're going to see sort of thing. It's like there's organizations that are going to come that are going to fill that gap, I think. And like the idea of governments and stuff like that providing a pension for people is going to be pretty obsolete pretty soon, especially with the amount of debt that the governments have taken on and like the fiscal problems with the economy and the, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think there's going to be like a different way of approaching that. I don't know what it's going to look like, but yeah, we'll see. It's another we'll see. It's like I don't know what my future is, but you know, I'm probably of about one of the most successful digital nomads that you can find, having built a business that now staffs over 180 people around the world. So I'm not worried about my future, but I'm worried about the future of you know, the people I work with, and the future, you know, of just ordinary people and that want to have an ordinary job and all this sort of stuff. So it's another we'll see, but I'm sure there will be initiatives and entrepreneurs that step in to fill that gap.
Okay. Because it's kind of, it strikes me as an individual kind of problem. I mean, like when you say organizations, what kind of organizations are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of like organizations that basically just allocate resources to people, and yeah, I mean, I'm not talking, it's a whole other topic for a whole other time, but
yeah.
Everybody here is craving community, and I think there's going to be lots of community initiatives that are more collectivistic in the way things are done, like the way food is shared and stuff like that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks a lot for the chat. This was great. Thank you for being on Rising Nomad channel, and I hope this was useful for your purposes as well.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Great. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.